Life often has this uncanny habit of hurling unforeseen challenges right at you, particularly at those moments when you believe you've got everything perfectly mapped out and under control. I could never have foreseen that heading back to my family home right after finishing college would plunge me into such a tangled and intricate scenario. But that's exactly where I found myself. My name is Ethan Thompson, and I'm here to share with you the story of how my entire existence flipped completely upside down in ways I never anticipated. At the outset, the decision to move back in with my father, Dylan, and my stepmother, Aurora, appeared to be a sensible and practical choice. The employment landscape out there was incredibly competitive and unforgiving, and residing with them temporarily while I hunted for a suitable job just made solid financial sense in every way. Aurora had been part of our family as my stepmother for a full 15 years by that point, and our relationship had always been harmonious and positive. She felt more like a close confidant or trusted friend rather than a traditional parental figure, imposing strict rules. Aurora, at 62 years old, possessed this remarkable poise and vitality that made her seem far younger than her actual age. It was as if time itself had been kind to her in a special manner. She maintained her physical well-being through regular yoga sessions and refreshing swims in the local pool, and her hair, streaked with elegant silver amid the warm brown tones, beautifully accentuated her gentle, compassionate features. From the very beginning of her time in our lives, she had approached me with warmth and understanding, offering guidance without ever being overbearing. Those initial weeks after my return home settled into a familiar and comforting rhythm that felt reassuring amid the uncertainties of post-college life. My father put in extended hours at his bustling construction firm, managing projects that kept him occupied from dawn until dusk, while Aurora handled her modest online business right from the comfort of our living room, selling handmade crafts and artisanal goods to a loyal customer base. As for me, my days were filled with the monotonous yet necessary tasks of crafting resumes, tailoring cover letters, and gearing up for potential job interviews that I hoped would soon materialize. One particular morning that would prove to be pivotal started off in the most ordinary fashion imaginable. I had a crucial job interview scheduled for later that afternoon, so I was in the bathroom, methodically preparing myself after a hot shower that had left the mirror completely steamed over. I was in the midst of carefully shaving my face, ensuring every stroke was precise to present my best self, when I heard a gentle tap on the door. It was Aurora's voice filtering through, politely inquiring if she could briefly step in to retrieve her daily medication from the cabinet nearby. Without giving it a second thought, I invited her to enter. Our household had always maintained a relaxed and informal atmosphere regarding such everyday matters. With no unnecessary fuss or formality, she came inside, clad in her customary soft silk robe that she often wore around the house for comfort, and reached up toward the medicine cabinet positioned just above the sink. What unfolded in the next instant seemed to stretch out in an almost surreal slow motion, capturing my full attention unexpectedly. As she extended her arm to grab what she needed, her robe accidentally snagged on the cabinet's handle, causing it to loosen slightly and create a brief moment of surprise. The air in the room felt suspended for a heartbeat as our gazes connected through the foggy reflection in the mirror, both of us registering the awkwardness of the situation with a start. Aurora swiftly adjusted her robe, her face turning a shade of embarrassed pink, and she murmured, "I'm so terribly sorry about that, Ethan. Please, let's keep this little mishap between us and not mention it to your father." With that, she exited the room in a hurry, leaving me to process the unexpected interruption. Throughout the remainder of that day, my mind kept drifting back to the incident during my interview, distracting me and stirring up a swirl of confusing emotions that I hadn't anticipated feeling towards someone who had been a steady presence in my life for so long. Aurora seemed to steer clear of me for the rest of the evening, and our family dinner that night unfolded in an unusually subdued and tense silence, with conversations feeling forced and minimal. The following morning brought with it a small note that had been discreetly slipped beneath my bedroom door. In Aurora's graceful and flowing handwriting, it requested a private conversation once my father had departed for his workday. My pulse quickened as I absorbed the words, sensing intuitively that this discussion held the potential to alter the dynamics of our household in profound ways. We convened in the kitchen shortly after Dad's car pulled out of the driveway, with Aurora seated across from me at the wooden table, her fingers nervously encircling a steaming mug of coffee. She appeared more open and fragile than I had ever witnessed her before. Her usual, confident demeanor softened by vulnerability. "Ethan, regarding what happened yesterday," she started, her tone laced with a slight quiver that betrayed her inner turmoil. She went on to confess that the bathroom mishap had unexpectedly unearthed some buried emotions within her, feelings of connection and nostalgia that she hadn't realized were still lingering from the years we'd shared as a family. To my own surprise, I found myself responding with honesty, admitting that the event had lingered in my thoughts as well, prompting me to reflect on our relationship in a new light. The atmosphere in the room grew thick with unspoken understanding as we sat there, both recognizing that a subtle shift had occurred in how we viewed one another, not in any improper sense, but as two people who had perhaps overlooked the depth of their bond over the years. Aurora extended her hand across the table, her touch light and reassuring on mine, a gesture that conveyed a sense of shared empathy and support. Before long, we were standing nearer to each other, the soft rays of morning sunlight filtering through the kitchen window and casting a warm glow on her face, illuminating the mix of hesitation and warmth in her expression. Time appeared to pause as we drew closer, and we shared a heartfelt embrace, one that lasted just a few moments but carried the weight of years of unspoken appreciation. We stepped back, and the gravity of this newfound closeness washed over us. Aurora placed a hand over her heart, whispering, "This feels different, but we must be mindful." Her words echoed a cautionary note, yet her eyes reflected a genuine desire for continued connection on an emotional level. I understood that agreeing and maintaining distance might have been the wiser path, but an inexplicable pull kept me engaged, wanting to explore this evolving friendship further. In the days that followed, our interactions transformed into a careful ballet of meaningful looks and deliberate spacing, all while striving to appear unchanged in front of my father. However, the subtle undercurrent of our strengthened bond proved challenging to conceal entirely. Every casual brush of hands or solitary moment together brimmed with layers of unvoiced sentiments and shared understanding. I began fabricating reasons to linger at home more frequently, ostensibly focusing on my job search applications, but in truth, I was cherishing the opportunities to spend time with Aurora in quiet companionship. She mirrored this behavior often, appearing in the same spaces as me under various pretexts, whether it was sorting through old photos, albums, or discussing books we'd both enjoyed. The weight of this developing closeness started to manifest in moments of introspection for both of us. One afternoon, while my father was still at the office, Roar entered the living room where I was seated, her expression clouded with concern, her typical poise showing faint cracks under the strain. "We really ought to discuss this more thoroughly," she suggested, gently closing the door to ensure privacy. She took a seat beside me on the cozy sofa, near enough that I could detect the soothing lavender fragrance she always wore, a scent that had provided comfort during my teenage years, through various heartaches, and now evoked a profound sense of familiarity and trust. We conversed at length that day, delving into topics both profound and mundane, the ethical complexities of our situation, how it felt both comforting and complicated, the impracticality of allowing our bond to deepen in ways that might exclude others in the family, and the potential risks to our household harmony. Our dialogue stretched on, filled with reflections on life, family, and personal growth, until the abrupt sound of the front door closing jolted us back to the present. Dad had returned home earlier than expected, prompting us to quickly compose ourselves, smoothing out any signs of our intense conversation as his footsteps approached. That evening, during dinner, the burden of our private exchanges felt almost overwhelming as we sat across from him. He chatted animatedly about his workday, blissfully oblivious to the afternoon his wife and son had spent in deep discussion. Aurora picked at her meal, her appetite diminished by the internal conflict we both shared. Later that night, I discovered another note from her in my room, proposing a late-night meeting in the garden under the stars. I recognized that ignoring it and stepping back might prevent any further complications. But the draw of genuine connection compelled me forward. As we sat side by side on the garden bench, our shoulders nearly touching in the cool night breeze, Aurora confided, "I can't seem to shake these thoughts about our talks. Even it's troubling because I've never experienced this level of openness before." The chill in the air contrasted with the warmth of our conversation, and I replied, "I feel the same way. It's like discovering a new layer to our relationship." Our exchange grew more earnest, with her hands gesturing expressively as we delved into personal stories, and mine responding in kind, fostering a sense of mutual vulnerability. The forbidden aspect of keeping these moments secret only heightened their significance, making each word feel more poignant. A distant dog's bark broke the spell, reminding us of our surroundings and the need for discretion. Aurora rose, adjusting her shawl, and noted, "We must be cautious about this." Her gaze hinting at the value she placed on our continued dialogues. We committed to greater care, seeking out safer times for our heart-to-heart conversations. The ensuing days felt like an emotional tightrope walk, observing Aurora interact with my father while harboring our private insights, all the while feigning normalcy. Family meals turned into tests of composure, where I had to restrain the urge to reference our shared confidences. Sleep eluded me more often, as I lay awake pondering Aurora's perspectives from the adjacent room, the house feeling constricted by the depth of our evolving friendship. One morning, encountering her alone in the kitchen once more, the echo of our initial post-incident talk lingered palpably. Without preamble, we embraced in a platonic hug, reaffirming the support we offered each other. We acknowledged the risks we were courting each shared secret. Each moment of candor edged us nearer to potential discovery, but the authenticity of our connection made resistance futile. Aurora endeavored to establish clear limits, preserving the propriety of our family roles, yet whenever solitude presented itself, those boundaries dissolved effortlessly, like mist in the morning sun. The build-up of emotional intensity mounted steadily. Ordinary interactions gained profound significance, crossing paths in the corridor, locking eyes during meals, or exchanging knowing smiles while handling household chores. My father sensed a shift in the air but chalked it up to the pressures of my job hunt, unaware of the true source behind the altered behaviors of his son and wife. Over time, our bond deepened beyond mere surface-level chats, evolving into a profound emotional alliance, where we exchanged innermost thoughts and aspirations that we'd withheld from others. The guilt, however, began to gnaw at us persistently. Each instance of my father showing affection to Aurora or expressing pride in my progress felt like a sharp reminder of the exclusion we were practicing. We were treading a fine line, sharing parts of ourselves that perhaps should have remained within the family unit as a whole. One evening, as we conversed quietly in her yoga space while Dad stayed late at work, Aurora's eyes welled up with tears. "We can't sustain this level of secrecy," she said, her embrace tightening even as she voiced the concern. I held her reassuringly, inhaling the comforting lavender aroma, and agreed. "You're right." Though neither of us immediately pulled away, we'd grown reliant on this unique support system we'd built. Then came the announcement from Dad about his upcoming week-long business trip. Aurora and I exchanged a subtle glance, both understanding it as an opportunity for uninterrupted time together. That week unfolded like a serene interlude, where we prepared meals side by side, viewed films on the sofa, and engaged in lengthy discussions about life, dreams, and challenges, strengthening our platonic tie. Yet, interruptions from reality are inevitable. Midway through, Dad phoned to mention a possible early return, spurring us to reflect deeply on our actions. Upon my return home that evening, Aurora awaited in the garden, her silhouette graceful against the twilight, though a veil of melancholy shadowed her features. "We have to address this," she urged, indicating the bench beside her. I joined her, my spirit weighed down by impending change. She articulated how our connection, while meaningful, was built on foundations that risked undermining family trust, and continuing in secrecy was unsustainable. I nodded in agreement, the ache in my chest confirming her wisdom, yet the idea of severing our close talks pained me. "What path forward do we take?" she pondered aloud, her voice tentative. "Your father merits our honesty, and you deserve relationships unburdened by complications." Her insights resonated truthfully, despite the sting. Aurora remained my father's partner, and no amount of emotional depth could alter that core reality. We lingered in quiet contemplation, hands linked in solidarity, observing the sun dip below the horizon, the moment feeling like a poignant farewell to an irreplaceable chapter. I believe moving out is the right step, I eventually proposed, recognizing it as the sole viable option to preserve harmony. Remaining under the same roof, with daily interactions tempting further closeness, would prove torturous. Aurora concurred, tears tracing her cheeks. Yes, that seems wisest. But Ethan, she turned, her gaze earnest, understand that our bond was authenticate, stemmed from true mutual respect and understanding, not fleeting whims. I drew her into a final, comforting hug, committing to memory the sense of solace she provided. I know, I murmured, the embrace encapsulating unspoken regrets, affections, and unrealized potentials. The next day, I informed Dad of securing an apartment nearer to urban job prospects. He reacted with surprise but encouragement, commending my proactive stance. Aurora assisted with packing, both of us meticulously upholding appropriate boundaries. Each incidental contact or shared look now carried the essence of parting. On moving day, the process felt chaotic yet necessary, a blend of disorder and resolution. Though our connection had been unconventional and fraught with potential pitfalls, it had also been profoundly genuine, influential, and life. In the months that ensued, I landed a fulfilling position and began forming new social ties, striving to progress forward. Occasionally, in quiet nocturnal hours, I reminisced about those meaningful exchanges with Aurora and the extraordinary companionship we'd forged, only to release it as a cherished memory. To this day, Dad and Aurora remain together, and during my visits, we all navigate interactions with deliberate care, our past confidences securely tucked away. Yet, at times, when our glances meet over the dinner table, I detect a faint resonance of what once was the lingering echo of those insightful days and evenings, the poignant flavor of a profound friendship that circumstances demanded we set aside. Life possesses this remarkable capacity to astonish, revealing that deep connections don't invariably adhere to conventional paths. Sometimes they ignite brilliantly, illuminate our worlds briefly, and then fade, leaving lasting impressions on our hearts.